The 60s and 70s were a golden era for rock, but not every great band got the spotlight. Today, we're uncovering 10 obscure rock bands from that era that deserve a place in your collection. Let's turn up the volume and dive into rock history.
A sailor who sails no oceans like a bird that has no wings.
Before becoming a legendary session drummer for Frank Zappa, David Bowie, and Journey, Aynsley Dunbar led his own blues rock band, Aynsley Dunbar Retaliation. Formed after his split from John Mayall's Blues Breakers, the band channeled raw emotion into powerful, gritty blues. Their 1968 debut is a must-listen, but one of their most notable tracks, Warning, was a standalone single in 1967.
The first day that I met you, I was looking in the sky.
Black Sabbath later reimagined it on their debut album, turning it into a doom-laden classic. Though Aynsley Dunbar Retaliation never reached mainstream fame, their influence still resonates in rock history. Before AC/DC, there was Buffalo, one of Australia's first true heavy rock bands. Their 1973 album, Volcanic Rock, was a riff-heavy powerhouse, blending blues, doom, and early metal. Tracks like Sunrise, Come My Way, oozed attitude. While Freedom was pure high-energy rock. Too heavy for mainstream radio, Buffalo never broke internationally, but their impact on Aussie rock was undeniable. Bassist Peter Wells later formed Rose Tattoo, keeping their raw energy alive. Though underrated, Buffalo paved the way for Australia's hard rock and metal scenes, standing as a pioneering force in the country's musical history. Vanilla Fudge wasn't just another 60s cover band. They transformed pop hits into dark, psychedelic epics. Their haunting take on You Keep Me Hangin' On, originally by the Supremes, slowed the song to an intense orchestral crawl, dripping with emotion. Their dramatic, organ-heavy sound helped shape progressive rock and even influenced early heavy metal. Though they never reached mainstream superstardom, their fearless experimentation pushed rock's boundaries and inspired countless artists to think outside the box. Formed by Steve Marriott after leaving the Small Faces, Humble Pie was a powerhouse of bluesy, hard-hitting rock.
I'll bring you diamonds bright.
Their early albums were a mix of soulful ballads and heavy grooves, but it was their live performances that truly set them apart. By the time they released Performance Rockin' the Fillmore in 1971, they had honed their raw, energetic sound to perfection. Songs like I Don't Need No Doctor showcased Marriott's fiery vocals and the band's electrifying chemistry. While Peter Frampton later achieved solo fame, Humble Pie's influence on blues rock and hard rock remains undeniable. Germany's answer to progressive rock, Birth Control, blended elements of psychedelic rock, jazz, and heavy prog to create something truly unique.
I can see a certain light.
And no, despite their unusual name, their music had nothing to do with family planning. Their 1972 album, Hoodoo Man, is a wild ride through spacey synths, crushing guitar riffs, and complex time signatures. Gamma Ray became their signature track, featuring an explosive mix of heavy organ and fuzzed-out guitars. While they never reached the global status of bands like Yes or King Crimson, they were pushing boundaries in ways that few dared at the time. Continuing with German prog, Eloy was one of the most ambitious and imaginative bands of the 70s.
To breathe, my sinner.
Named after the futuristic race in H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, they crafted sprawling, cinematic albums filled with spacey synths, intricate guitar work, and grandiose storytelling. Their 1977 album Ocean is a prog rock epic, diving into themes of Atlantis and mythology.
Did never see the same. Silver and gold.
With Pink Floyd-esque atmospheres and Rush-like complexity, Eloy should have been a household name. Instead, they remained cult favorites, quietly influencing generations of prog musicians. Scottish hard rockers Iron Claw are one of the great what-ifs of rock history. Formed in the late 60s, they were playing Sabbath-style doom metal before Sabbath themselves had fully defined the genre. Their early recordings, filled with crushingly heavy riffs and dark lyrics, sound like they came straight out of Tony Iommi's playbook, except they were doing it at almost the same time. Unfortunately, they never released a proper album in their prime, and by the time their recordings were finally compiled decades later, their moment had passed. But make no mistake, Iron Claw was ahead of its time. If there's one British blues rock band that never got its due, it is the Groundhogs. Led by the criminally underrated Tony McPhee, they played a fiery mix of blues, hard rock, and proto-punk. Albums like Thank Christ for the Bomb and Split featured searing guitar work and politically charged lyrics.
Hand to hand was the way they fought. Your men were caught up for the cause.
Making them stand out in a crowded field. They were loved by critics and respected by musicians, yet never quite broke into the mainstream. McPhee's guitar playing was nothing short of phenomenal, influencing later punk and grunge acts in ways few realize. Psychedelic rock, blues, folk, jazz, Family somehow managed to blend all of these styles into something entirely their own. Their sound was hard to pin down. One minute they were delivering a bluesy groove, the next they were diving into proggy experimental territory. Frontman Roger Chapman's unmistakable vibrato and theatrical delivery made them stand out, but their refusal to stick to one genre may have kept them from wider success. Albums like Music in a Doll's House and Fearless are adventurous, unpredictable, and absolutely worth rediscovering.
Feel like a fox, house close at heels at the chase. Do I see?
Closing out our list is Be-Bop Deluxe, a band that refused to fit into any single category. Led by the brilliant Bill Nelson, they combined elements of glam rock, progressive rock, and even new wave before it was even a thing. Albums like Sunburst Finish showcased Nelson's dazzling guitar work and lyrical depth, while songs like Ships in the Night hinted at the new wave movement to come.
A sailor who sails no oceans like a bird that has no wings.
They were a band ahead of their time, too artsy for the mainstream, too rock-driven for full-on prog fans. But their influence lingers in the DNA of countless artists that followed. That's it. 10 overlooked rock bands from the 60s and 70s that deserve more love. Got a favorite or think we missed one? Drop a comment. If you enjoyed the ride, like, subscribe, and keep the music alive. Rock on!